I mean, do I even have to say it at this point? Go watch the earlier parts if you haven't already. Don't if you don't. Okay, so John Brown is a little bit different from Douglas and Garrison, mainly because he didn't write down a lot. He wasn't a writer or journalist. Instead, he did a ton of action for the abolitionist cause in not a lot of time. So John Brown was born in Connecticut in 1800. He was raised by strict Christian abolitionist parents and he picked up their values. For the first 50 years of his life, Brown didn't do very much to help the cause. He spent most of his life, puttering around the US trying to find good work because he was always, a little broke, probably due to the fact that he had 20 children, 9 of which that died in childhood and only 4 of which outlived him. But just because he was in dire financial straits didn't mean he did nothing to aid the anti slavery cause. With the little money he could spare, he funded the abolitionist speeches and pamphlets. He aided Harriet Tubman's Underground Railroad, and when he was 55, he and a few of his sons went to Kansas, where they helped form an anti slavery guerrilla resistance. And a year later, he killed 5 citizens in a pro slavery town, which technically makes him a mass murderer, and he was never tried for that offense. Anyway, in 1859, he and 21 other radicals raided the federal arsenal in Harpers Ferry, Virginia, with the intention of distributing weapons to slaves so that they could kill their captors and they would all form an army with Brown at the helm, and they would eradicate slavery in the US forcibly once and for all. All 22 rebels were caught by Virginian forces and they were hanged for their crimes. Brown was 59 when he died. So that guy was extreme. Let's see what he thought. Firstly, God justifies violence against slave owners and pro-slavery people because owning slaves is a sin. Secondly, slaves should revolt and kill their captors. And finally, he encouraged a violent overthrow of the government. So I think this guy is a bit too extreme for BLM. I think he's the kind of guy that I was talking about earlier, Ghazi Kodzo. Both of them would absolutely join the movement, but I think they're both so extreme that they'd rather form their own, groups than exist in something that they don't think is doing enough. But if they didn't do that, I think they would exist as, fringe radicals and they wouldn't find very large platforms. BLM is not in any way, shape, or form a religious organization. First of all, they do not use religion in their rhetoric. They don't use it as a justification for any of their actions. They just don't do it. This actually differentiates a lot from the 1960s civil rights movement, where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a preacher by trade, and he found a lot of support within the churches before becoming more based in racial justice. I think a lot of that comes from the United States moving away from being a very Christian country. Now only about 60% identifies as such. So branding yourself as an explicitly Christian movement is a bit of a turnoff for a bunch of people. Also, well, elephant in the room, BLM is pretty unapologetically liberal, and demographics alone dictate that Democrats and liberals are a lot less religious than their conservative counterparts. But I'm getting off topic. BLM is not religious in any way. No check. Okay. Slaves should revolt and kill their captors. So in 2016, a few policemen were shot and killed in Dallas during a PLM protest. I have exactly no recollection from the left's reaction at the time, and I actually have not been able to find any explicitly BLM-y articles or anything in support nor condemnation of the shooting. But looking at the sub-movements within BLM, like all cops are bad and defund the police, these show less that BLM is like a violent group and more like they're geared towards social reform, through voting and stuff, kind of more Garrisonian. So I'm gonna say no check. Overthrow of the government. I said this earlier with Garrison. No, BLM doesn't want to overthrow the government and remake it. No check. So Brown got an astounding 0% of his beliefs aligned with BLM's mission statement. I actually still think that he would be a part of the movement. I think that he would donate. I think that he would be, attending protests and justifying violence and, being pretty radical. At the beginning of this section of analysis, I said he would probably splinter from BLM and make his own social group, and I still stand with that. Okay guys, that's the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and you should go like and subscribe. Bye!